Welcome back to Warriors Pregame Live, presented by Comcast Business. We're getting ready for the Warriors and the Clippers, the first matchup between these two teams this season. Of course, the Warriors on the back end of a back-to-back. They'll have 15 back-to-backs this season. This will be the second one. But in the meantime, look who's kind enough to stop by the gatehouse here. GM, the Golden State Warriors, Mike Dunleavy. Of course, that's Festus Ezeli, Raj Mathai. I'm Bonte Hill. And off to a great start this season is Jonathan Kuminga. Obviously, the topic of conversation this past offseason. I want to ask you, Mike, what was your message to him before the end of last season as he went into the offseason to work on his game and try to figure out what was going to happen with you guys? Because he's come back. He's rebounding. He's scoring. His playmaking ability. Do you remember that message you had for him before he headed out to the offseason?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, first thing I wanted to hear from him was just where he was at with things. You know, he was the pending free agent, so anytime it's on you to re-sign a player or figure out a contract, you want to understand where that player is at. And it was a complicated summer at times, but we got through it. We figured it out, and I think everybody's in a good spot right now. JK's thriving. He's comfortable out there. He's confident. He's got off to a really good start, and let this thing go.
When we watch the games, we see that Steph Curry is still the top of his game. Is there, from a front office perspective, the mindset that we have to continue to milk those years, so to say, while also trying to build these young guys, Jonathan Kuminga, Pods, and Moses Moody?
Yeah, we want to make the most of them. I mean, as long as Steph can still do it, Draymond too. These guys have shown that over the last few years. These guys, the work they put in the offseason, coming into camp in shape, ready to go, how could we not? And so that's kind of our mission right now, is to keep this thing going, give these guys a chance, adding guys like Jimmy and Al Horford, including in our group, our young guys. Like, that's sort of the plan. That's the strategy. That's what we're rolling with, and we'll see how long we can take it.
Hey, Mike, one more thing about JK, Jonathan Kuminga. I remember when you were here as a player, 2002. You come in, your first few years here, there were some ups and downs. Can you relate to what he's going through or went through, and then did you share that with him?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, player development, player growth in this league for young players isn't always linear. You know, there's some bumps along the way, and I went through that. A lot of guys have gone through that. JK's seen that. I mean, some of it has been injury related for him, but for the most part, he's stuck with it. And you know, there are times where, frankly, the best thing for a young player is to get to a new situation. And I think we resisted that this summer. We figured it out. And, again, I think he's gotten off to a good start, and hopefully he'll thrive this season.
Brandin Podziemski last night. You know, first 3 games, you can't make a big deal about it. Some players are slow starters. Brandin Podziemski, he'll be eligible for a contract extension next season. So the messaging to him to just go out there and play and not think about that. You've been in that situation before, Mike. What is your message to B-Pods?
Yeah, I mean, he knows. I mean, he's just got to be him. You know, he's got to be a good player like he's been for us the last couple of years. You know, the contract stuff always takes care of itself. It just seems like once you get one deal done, there's always the next and the next, and so we're constantly planning here. But you know, BP knows what it takes to be a really good player. He's done that at a young age in this league. He's really solid on both sides of the ball. He can rebound, he can pass, he can shoot. So, you know, one of the reasons we drafted him, we feel pretty good about him as a player, and we got a long year to get through, and then we'll get to that other stuff afterwards.
Okay, so at this point now, I feel like you are the king of making stuff happen last minute, okay? So last season,
procrastinator?
No, procrastinator. No, I feel like you got to give more credit in that. Like last year, the Warriors going through, I think halfway through the season, they're 500. And then you get Jimmy Butler, a huge trade that, you know, the Warriors go 23-8 with Jimmy Butler in the lineup. And then this season, off-season, you go through the whole off-season. Everybody else is making trades and making moves. And last minute, you have all these guys stacked up. You have Al Horford join the lineup, DeAnthony Melton. Is that the identity now
Well, yeah, I mean, I think
GM Mike Dunleavy?
I think it's about being opportunistic. It's about being patient. You know, obviously in this league, a lot of things don't really get done until there's a deadline, and that sort of happened this offseason with JK, and then enabled us to go through with the rest of the deals, and the same thing a little bit last year with Jimmy at the trade deadline. You start seeing everybody's best hand, and you figure out things, and that's the way it goes. So I prefer not to be considered a procrastinator.
Not that,
Who brought me on the show?
You know, yeah,
Those Duke guys.
If it's yielding Jimmy Butler and Jonathan Kuminga, I'm good with that label.
Hey, we talk about all the players, rightfully so, but you got a decision to make, I guess a joint decision with Steve Kerr at some point. I sat down with him last year, a very candid moment. He said, you know what? When I leave, whether it's the end of this season or in 2 years or in 10 years, whenever it is, it will not be bitter. And I read that as he is not a coach and you are not the GM and Joe Lacob not the owner. It's more like a collaboration, a joint venture here. Is that how you see it? Because it's going to end at some point.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, the reality is Steve can stay as long as he wants. He's got great self-awareness. He knows where he's at. And, I think Joe said this too. We want, if he's going to coach here, we want to make sure that he fully wants to be here, is fully committed and all that. And I think Steve's taking the time right now. He's taking the season. We're respectful of that. I'm confident that he'll be back and we'll get something done. But this is not like a normal situation with a coach in the last year of his deal. This is Steve Kerr. This is unique. And, we're comfortable with where we're at with it, and we feel like we'll get something done.
The Western Conference seems as it's stacked is probably the most stacked we've ever seen it before. A lot of young talent, obviously the defending champions of the West. What stood out to you so far in the young season when it comes to the Western Conference?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the depth, you mentioned it. Some of these young teams, Portland, we played them the other night. They really put it on us. San Antonio's off to a great start. So maybe some of these younger teams that people didn't think were going to emerge so quickly, they may be ready. And that just adds to a deep conference that has some of these older teams like ourselves, the Clippers. Denver's going to be in the mix. Obviously, OKC, the defending champions. So you can go on and on. I just don't know if there's going to be any bad teams in this conference, which makes every night out tough for us.
What's to say about the talent right now in the league? If the older guys, if Steph, Draymond, if Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, they're still at the top of the food chain, what does that say about the longevity? We both played. And the fact that they can still be playing this well, this long, and this late into their careers, what's that say?
It's impressive. I think a lot of it goes into the medical side, the performance side. These guys are taking care of themselves. The technology is better. The understanding of what it takes to play longer is better. I mean, what Steph's doing at 37, Al Horford's 39. If you really take care of yourself, you do the right things, you can play a long time in this league. And they don't cancel you out early like they did you and me.
And by the way, Bonte and Festus. So Mike gets drafted, 0-2. He's in New York. I'm in studio. We do an interview. You look the same. I mean, we're talking about longevity.
I don't feel the same.
This
I don't
dude
feel the
looks
same.
The same as he did in 02. And there were some gray hair years. You had Musselman coming through, Mike, the Stanford coach.
Mike
Montgomery, and then to Don Nelson. I mean, there were some aging years. It was like dog
you play
years.
in the league 15 years, you go through a lot of stuff. But, I feel good mentally. It's nice of you to say that. I don't feel great physically all the time, but, I'm happy to be here. I love what I'm doing, and, trying to stay young.
Good to see you. Talking about it was always a great time out. Remember?
It was, and that mascot was everywhere.
Thunder was everywhere, Mike. That's a highlight of those guys.
That just is like it was a different time.
It was
a different
but you know what?
Franchise,
to
different
get deep
era.
here, it was still packed.
Yeah,
it was still
Absolutely.
17,000, and that was one of the great things when the Warriors did turn the page and they became this elite franchise, winning titles. It was still 17,000 back then when you were playing, when things weren't going so well.
Yeah. No, it felt like a tidal wave ready to explode, and the team got really good, and the fans were here. They always have been here, and they really came out. And even more impressively for us to move from Oakland to San Francisco, and you still get that energy. I mean, last night, it was a Monday night in the city, 3 games into the season, and they were the fans were incredible. So we're fortunate to have some of the best in all of sports, and it's a pleasure to sort of work for them and go out every night. And I feel like a fan many nights. People say, what do you do during the game? There's not much for me to do other than cheer and root these guys on just like our fans.
Maybe some text messages from Joe Lacob.
Yeah, he's busy. He's busy sitting courtside eating popcorn. He doesn't bring the phone out.
All right. We always love talking to you, man. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
Absolutely. GM of the Golden State Warriors, Mike Dunleavy here. We're going to keep it rolling here on Warriors Pregame Live, and we're going to discuss the wild Western Conference. More when we return.